Thanks for clicking on Wing.com for this second round series edition of Inside the Zone with our man Blake Sebring from the News Sentinel. And as your article stated, we're finally here. Yeah. We thought we'd be here. We pretty much knew we'd be here. And now we're finally here.
I think everybody's been looking forward to this series, especially from the Fort Wayne side ever since last year when they got beat by the Walleye. I mean, anytime the Komets and Walleye get together, it's a fantastic game. It's just fun hockey to watch. It's just the two teams just push each other to new levels.
Both teams look pretty good in their first round series. The Komets winning 4 out of 5 to beat the Cincinnati Cyclones, finishing that off Sunday on the road. Meanwhile, a sweep over the Indy Fuel for the Toledo Walleye. So going into this series, what's your gauge on both teams? What are they doing well, and then how does that play out when we see Game 1 on Saturday?
I can't believe the Komets, and this is going to sound like a cop-out, I can't believe how well the Komets are playing without 6 guys in the lineup. I mean, that's a whole shift right there. It's amazing. And they don't know if they're going to get any of them back for this weekend or not yet. But it's just incredible that they beat Cincinnati in 5 games without 6 guys. That's incredible. I mean, the Komets haven't had their full lineup once this year. And the kids, the 3 rookies, all stepped in and played great. They've really made a big impact. And as Martineau and Petrozelli and McKernan have all played well. They've all accounted themselves very well. Toledo's a different story. Toledo's loaded. They got 7 guys right now who played significant time in the AHL this year. They are loaded. Toledo has, I think they have the best talent in the league. Now, we'll beat skill sometimes. And the Komets really, really handled them during the regular season. They were 6-2 against Toledo. So, I mean, there's a toss-up.
As far as this Komets teams go, you mentioned the 6-2 during the regular season. We've talked many times how the regular season is so much different from what we see in the playoffs in terms of roster, just in terms of approach.
2 referees, the whole thing.
Yeah, so if you're the Komets, how much confidence do you draw from the ability to have gone 6-2 against them in the regular season? Not only that, I mean, the last time you were at Toledo was just a couple of weeks ago, and you beat them pretty handily 5-2.
You won twice this year at the Huntington Center, which is a very, very difficult place to play for the Komets. They were 2-14-1 before that. I mean, it's just a horrible place for the Komets to play, but this team loves these kind of challenges. I don't think this group has any intimidation factor about going over there at all. I think they relish that kind of challenge. And plus you got Michael Hauser, 17-5 in his career against the Walleye. I mean, that's just a nice little ace in the hole.
When you take a look at Hauser, after the first 2 games of this series against Cincinnati, I mean, the guys couldn't say enough about how well Michael Hauser was playing. Goaltending is at a premium in the postseason. They feel very confident with Michael Hauser. Going forward, he saved 16 of 18, I think, yesterday. Didn't see a whole lot of shots, but what can you say about the goaltending play for the Komets at this point against goaltending play that they are very familiar with in Pat Nagel?
Well, I think one thing that was really cool for me to see was that I thought the defense really stepped up the last 2 games. I mean, they might have been 2 of Michael's easiest games so far in the playoffs. I mean, because they did such a great job of pushing the Cincinnati shooters outside, and the Cyclones settled for those shots. They didn't get more than a handful of shots in 2 games in the slot or down near Michael, and that was fantastic. I mean, that's just amazing. And then that's kind of the thing the Komets got to do against Toledo, too. They have to be physical, but they got to be careful. And even though there was like 8 games, Toledo averaged 2 more power plays a game than the Komets did during those games. They can't do that in the playoffs. They just can't. They can't do some of the same things that they did against Cincinnati. They've just got to be more careful.
So many subplots, really, in this series. As I mentioned, Pat Nagel obviously played very well for the Komets in years past, and then you've got Mike Embach also on the Toledo roster.
Simone Denis, the defenseman, who was here for a bit. And, there's just so many. People forget that Justin Hodgman and Bobby Shea also played for Toledo, too.
Wow, I did forget that.
There's just a ton of little sidebars with this stories, too. I mean, the Ferris State guys on both teams, and there's just a lot of fun. And that's part of why these games are so good and why please, ECHL, let them play here more than 3 times next year. Please, and don't make it just opening night, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Eve. Please spread it out throughout the year. Make it 5, 6 times. I mean, those games are they're just worth it.
We talked with Gary about it before the series about the 2-3-2 format. This is a 2-2-1-1-1 format. Does that change anything approach-wise going in?
It means Komets gets to sleep in their own bed, and that's why it is this way. The league rule is anything within 200 miles apart can go 2-2-1-1-1, and outside it has to go 2-3-2. It's an economic thing more than anything. It just helps save some money. Otherwise, you'd be spending a ton of money.
Right.
Otherwise.
Yeah, you'd have to stay on the road for almost a week.
Well, and you'd have to do an extra trip, if you were the lesser seed.
When you take a look at Toledo, just give me a breakdown of their team. What can Komets fans expect to see when they see the Walleye if they haven't, watched them diligently so far?
Well, I haven't seen them since, New Year's Eve. I mean, it's kind of hard to say.
A lot has changed since then.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. I mean, Mike Embach came back, and I talked to him today. There'll be a story coming up in this week. I've talked to Pat. There'll be a story about that coming up this week. There's just so many subplots. Part of Toledo, I feel like they got younger for the most part this year. They're just as fast. They're just as opportunistic. They're just as disciplined. They're going to try to be chippy and force you to take the penalties and react. And, just remember, they always catch the second guy. And they always get the guy that retaliates every
reaction.
time. And it's just the same thing. And I think that's part of why the Komets are confident, because they did handle all that during the regular season. Now, the Komets only had one power play goal in 17 attempts against the Walleye. Now, that's all changed in this first round. They were great in the power play. Toledo was like, I think it was 4 for 35 or 32 against the Komets. So that's not bad either. So the Komets did a good job with that.
Yeah, penalty kill has been an issue, but
and it seems like that has been the key factor the last 2 times these guys have met in the playoffs. It's always been the power play, because Toledo gets so many chances, and they have such skilled players that they cash on it. So that'll be the key again.
One of the nuggets I pulled from your story is you mentioned that the Cincinnati series was a perfect warm-up for Toledo.
Yes.
Why is that? Expound on that.
Because without those 6 guys, that changes the whole way the Komets got to play, in effect. They've got to be defense first. They can't depend on scoring 5 goals in a game. You just can't do that because, you don't have Haji, you don't have Marco, you don't have Maggio, you don't have La Raza, you don't have Culkin, you don't have Cheek. I mean, that's a lot of offense right there. So you've got to play more conservatively and take care of your own end first. And I thought that's what they did a great job at that. Plus, they did a pretty good job of scoring first because they were taking care of their own end. You know how we talked a month ago about how guys would turn the puck over at the blue line, and first thing they do is put their head down, and then they'd loaf back, and then, there's the trailer score. That didn't happen that much in the Cincinnati series. So this was a good preparation for how you have to play Toledo.
When you take a look at some of the numbers that really stand out, the Komets outshot the Cyclones 229 to 149, and then in the third period, 77 to 36.
Yeah.
How do they? Is that something they look to continue on outshooting their opponents? And if so, how can they do that against a Toledo team that is as offensively talented as it is?
You do it with your forecheck. You go after them hard. Because, like we talked about last week, the ECHL playoffs are all about protecting your defense and not letting the opposing team attack your defense while you are attacking at the other end to put all the pressure on their defense. And that's what the Komets have to do. I thought their forecheck was really good in the Cincinnati series with Desjardins and Kravchenko and Thompson and Baptista and McDonald. I mean, those guys were just great. Now, they got to step it up some more. And it's going to be a little harder against the more skilled defensemen that Toledo has, like Denis. I mean, you're going to have to go after those guys hard early and do it consistently.
Injury-wise, where are some of these guys? I know that they don't talk a lot about it. They don't talk a lot about it during the regular season. They talk about it less in the playoffs. But just your observation of where they are and what we might see, because there are some talented guys right now that are out. Marco being, of course, one of them.
Yeah, I really don't know. They didn't have practice today, obviously. I'm sure they partied pretty hard on the bus ride home, and they wanted to sleep today. And I'm hoping to go to practice tomorrow and find out a little bit more about that. But I don't know. And they may not say either. I mean, they may just keep it under their hat, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Lower body injury, upper body injury.
Either way, I think the Komets have to play the same way. You know, they've got to be more defensive minded. They've got to be defense first. They've got to hustle back. They've got to do a lot of that.
To wrap things up, your thoughts on this series, how do you see this playing out? Because you mentioned you thought it was, a toss-up earlier when we were talking.
Oh, I think it'll be 7. You count on 7, and then if it comes up less than that, that's a blessing. I mean, because these teams, they know each other so well. There's not a lot of secrets, and it's not usually one guy getting hot and carrying his team, although it wouldn't surprise me to see Sid do that. It's more of the balance. These are the 2 deepest teams usually in the league. Now, Komets are not, that depth is not there, although it's fascinating to see Artie and Martineau and Desi going against the top line for Cincinnati and beating them.
Yeah.
That was really impressive.
Already some early goals, that was big.
Yeah. But that could be a key. That line right there could be a real big key.
Final question, what are you most looking forward to about this series? Now that it's finally here. I felt like, we've spent 8 months
I'm looking forward to not getting much sleep because, you want to make sure you're there and you're prepared and, you're on top of things, and just because you don't want to miss anything. That's how good these games always are. They're so much fun. You just don't want to miss anything because they're just brilliant hockey for this level. I just love how by game 5 or 6 the teams are just flying because they know each other so well, and they're just pushing.
All right, well, we look forward to what should be an amazing series between Toledo and your Fort Wayne Komets starting this weekend over in Toledo. That'll do it for this week's edition of Inside the Zone. He's Blake, I'm Glenn. We'll be back next Monday talking Komets hockey.